The world of e-commerce can be tricky, and that's why you need the experts to help take you to the next level. This is Delivering E-commerce, and this is Chris Parsons.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Delivering E-commerce. I'm your host, Chris Parsons, and I have the extreme pleasure of introducing a longtime friend of mine, Brighton Bacchus, to the show. Brighton, man, it's been a long time since you and I have had the opportunity to speak. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I know it's going to be very educational, even for myself, so I'm looking forward to that. But you and I met a long time ago at newegg.com, and you were a delight to deal with. You were a true, what I consider, partner. There's a lot of times that you work with suppliers and it doesn't have that win-win feel and that win-win relationship. But with you, that was instant. As soon as we met, it was about how to drive success for both of us. And that was a great moment in my career. So I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell your journey.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that, Chris. And you're right. We really did a lot of great work together at newegg.com. I know you were brought in specifically to Newegg to really grow their Canadian business. And we had a lot of success in growing that together. Newegg was a US-based e-commerce, one of the largest e-commerce electronic apparel and computer peripheral companies in the world. And really working together with you, with that company, really happy to say Newegg.com exploded in Canada. And also really appreciate your comments about the partnership, because I always like to say, in whatever professional role that I'm in, being in sales and business development, is, really three goals is, number one, to help a company grow, to help their bottom line grow. Number two, improve the customer delivery experience, which is so critical, especially in the world of e-commerce these days. And number three, not only be a supplier, as you said, or a partner, but really become a resource where if they have questions about duties and taxes, if they have customs about how to ship to a particular country, that's where we like to come in. Just a very brief background on myself. I've been married 25 years to my wife, Amy. I have two daughters. Lauren is 21 and in college. My younger daughter, Amanda, is 18. Just graduated high school. I'm based in the Southern California area of the States. Have been in the logistics supply chain industry, give or take 15 years, with a number of different companies. And really looking forward to the opportunity.
It's excellent. You've hit a lot of milestones there. 25 years and and some congratulations.
Thank you. Been very blessed, as you know. I like to look a lot at my, personal development and growth, kind of similar to the, e-commerce. A marriage is a lot like a startup business. You're working together. You're trying to grow together, and you want to do everything you can to, make it as positive and as successful as possible. And really with the, thankfully with the blessings of my wife, Amy, and my two girls, thankfully the Bacchus family is still chugging right along. So it's been great.
Great. Hey, so let's dive into your career a little bit. Let's talk about that journey that you've been on and how you are where you are today.
Yeah, definitely, no problem. So kind of the short story is right out of college, I went to Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles, graduated many moons ago in 1993. Was always interested in careers in sales. Originally out of school, I thought I was going to become the next, Al Michaels or Chris Collinsworth or Joe Buck, like a sports announcer. Realized that was a very competitive field, and actually just really got into sales. Started off actually selling automobiles for 2 years, which was a great experience. Worked in litigation support sales, which the easiest way to describe that is like the O.J. Simpson trial and all the boards and everything. Did that for about 7 years. Then after that, I was in Yellow Pages and internet advertising back when that was a thing. It was really big, and that's in the late 1990s. And then just with changes in the industry, was contacted by a recruiter to work in the supply chain and logistics industry. So, very fortunate to work with a number of big name companies. One of them was Purelator, where we were together at Newegg. I was there in 1999 to 2006. From 2006 to 2007, I was with DHL Global Forwarding. Little time there that was focusing more on air and ocean freight. Then really missed the small parcel. So I was with the company Ascendia for 3 years. They're based out of the States as well. And now have been with FedEx cross-border logistics going on 2 or 3 years. So that's kind of the brief overview of who we are and what we do. And ideally, it's a sales position, but it's really working with e-commerce businesses who want to grow their e-commerce business internationally, their shipping, and that's really what I do. Is I look at the research, I look at their internet statistics, the geography, where their hits are coming from, looking at what their average order value is, and if we can give them the opportunity to service that international market from where they currently are without having to use a 3PL or open a dedicated distribution center within a country, that's really what we want to do. So,
Brighton, with you helping out retailers, and you're talking about some of the changes that are happening, and we've noticed that there's some recent changes in the North America trade agreements with U.S., Canada, Mexico, from switching from NAFTA to the U.S., Mexico, Canada agreement. I know we can do a separate show on this, but I just wanted to have you discuss that briefly, talk about some of the ins and outs or some of the major changes that retailers should be aware of.
Yeah, definitely no problem. There's really 2 or 3 primary changes that really impacted USMCA. Prior to that, really during the Clinton administration, we had NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, and ideally what that was created for was to really level the playing field between the U.S., Canada, and Mexico to create free trade with limited taxes and duties, and really give entrepreneurs in the e-commerce sphere the opportunity to expand their business and grow. As time evolved, e-commerce kind of changed. So some of the things that changed is what's called the de minimis value, which is the minimum amount of a shipment that a customer can be charged duties and taxes on, increased. From the US to Canada, it used to be $20 Canadian, but it was actually increased to $40 Canadian. The reason that is important is e-commerce customers in Canada that are now looking for things from the US. Previously, if it was $20 or below, they did not have to pay any duties or taxes. Now, with it being increased to $40, they can actually purchase something from the States that is $40, which is below that de minimis value. So it really does increase their e-commerce dollar spend. So they're not having to pay anywhere from 15, 17, 5%, as you know, depending on what Canadian province you're in, and their e-commerce dollar can go much further. So that was really the primary change that we're seeing in the e-commerce space. We're also seeing what it's doing is it's allowing a lot more companies, whether in the US, Canada, or Mexico. My primary experience is with companies in the US, but really what it is doing is it is really giving US-based e-commerce companies the opportunity to ship to Canada and really removing some of those hurdles and allowing them to ship to Canada, reach those Canadian customers within a, as if it was a domestic shipment, and really improve their customer engagement with Canada and build up a Canadian following. So really the primary change with the USMCA was that de minimis value. And that's really something that has really helped US e-commerce businesses grow their business to Canada.
That's an interesting point. I had a guest on a few weeks ago, and when US shoppers shop in Canada, they get to spend $800 that they don't have to pay the tax and duty, and Canadians get to the luxury of spending $40.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the things right there, where again the playing field is definitely not quite level. Even if you're in Mexico, there's a figure of 150, so it's very challenging, definitely for Canadian customers. when it comes to the whole duties and taxes thing. So yeah, I agree. 20 to 40, it's double the amount, but again, 20 to 800, 40 times the amount. Again, I wish I was more influential in North American trade policy, but yeah, it definitely it is an improvement. But hoping that they'll continue to make improvements for e-commerce shoppers around the world.
The great news is the fact that our Canadian dollar has strengthened, historically really low, held down by our government, but with some recent COVID numbers, we are up significantly. I think it's coming down a little bit this week, but ultimately between those two things, it is more appealing for Canadians to be able to leverage that buying power and shop on U.S. retailer sites.
Yeah, the Canadian dollar is going further and further. I mean, I as you know, I spent a lot of time in Canada, and for a while I remember, parity, and now it and for a long time it was more in the U.S. dollar's favor of the balance. And as you said, with COVID, with the strength of the Canadian economy, the way Canada handled the global pandemic, with the lockdowns, did a magnificent job. I mean, how magnificent of a job that they do? As you know, the NHL decided to have the Stanley Cup playoffs in Canada last year. They did such an amazing job. And again, all of those teams came up to Canada. So yeah, definitely, it's great to see the Canadian dollar strong, the Canadian economy strong, and looking forward to continued growth.
Great. Brighton, with the next question I have is, we talked just a little bit about COVID, but what are some of the significant changes that COVID has brought on into your industry over the last 18 months, and how's it really impacted you?
Yeah, no, excellent question, Chris. And this applies to e-commerce businesses, whether you're in the US, whether you're Canada, or anywhere around the world. So a couple of things. First of all, the e-commerce demand has been significant. Many companies expected e-commerce to grow and blossom probably within 4 to 8 years. With the global pandemic and everyone being at home, that capacity that was built for many organizations, that's 2 times, 3 times the size, was put into use right away. So that's globally, let alone domestically. In the US, very familiar with the challenges of USPS and delays. In Canada Post had delays, and COVID as the global pandemic didn't select any people in particular. It was the same with shipping and logistics companies. Whether you were brown or whether you're purple or whether you're red or whatever color you were definitely impacted by that. So really, the first thing was really the capacity. Capacity was an issue. Delays, there were many delays. Many companies in this space will use commercial aircraft to move those shipments internationally. When there's a blockade on flights from the US to European countries, or flights from the US to Canada, for example, there was definitely a significant decrease in commercial airspace capacity. So many providers have instituted some COVID-19 surcharges, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with. And it's beyond the usual fuel surcharge and some of those other charges. So it has made shipping more expensive for e-commerce based businesses. And then I think really the third thing that COVID-19 has impacted e-commerce customers has really been transit times. Transit times around the world and across the globe. When you look at COVID and transit times, if you looked at them on a graph, shipments, for example, from the US to Canada, for us, shipments were taking 4 to 6 days. Our average transit time was 5 days to Canada from the US. Now, in Canada, with the COVID-19, some of the lockdowns they had in Canada, the average time in transit was inching up to 6 to 10 days, probably closer to 8 days, and that's US to Canada. We're happy to say now that we're seeing the transit times across the globe starting to come back down. But because of that lack of commercial airspace, many providers were using ocean containers just because it was prohibitive and sometimes unavailable to move them in the air. that a lot of those shipments, and again, this is of course during the holidays when everybody needs their products, a lot of those shipments were actually moving on ocean containers from the east coast of the United States or the west coast of the United States across the Atlantic to Europe, or sometimes containers from Southern California actually going up into Vancouver on the East Coast, going into Montreal or Toronto. So yeah, definitely those were the primary impacts of COVID on the e-commerce shipping industry.
Yeah, we noticed a lot of delays, and even on the demands of our own logistics centers, we obviously, especially in the home industry with the boom there, we've had our challenges to keep up to demand. And you always forecast for growth each year, and you want incremental growth, but this type of growth has been unprecedented, and very fortunate time to be through, because it's also forcing us to learn and react faster and adapt. So by going through this, I think it just accelerates the type of growth that the whole industry will have going forward. So when you look at the outlook for the rest of this year, people are going back to malls, they're starting to shop again offline and into the bricks and mortars. Do you still see a significant demand going into the back half of the year?
Yeah, no, excellent question, Chris. From our perspective and from forecasts from what we're seeing, I think you're still going to continue to see that growth of e-commerce business, online shopping, and especially on the cross-border side. I think you're going to continue to see that. Same as you said, actually, my daughters and I went to the mall a couple of weeks ago, and there are a lot of vacancies in our mall. And this, it's a larger mall. It's not quite the Eaton Center in Toronto, but it's definitely a big mall. And there are a lot of vacancies. There's a lot of empty spaces within the malls. So I agree with you. I think there will be an increase of the brick and mortar stores that are making a comeback. The brick and mortar stores are also learning to be dynamic and flexible in the way that they do things. Whether it's Walmart taking returns at their stores, or Walmart actually, as doing fulfillment from stores for e-commerce shipments. So there are many ways that e-commerce companies are transforming themselves in this new environment. I would say that it is going to continue to be, there will continue to be growth. There will continue to be that drive for e-commerce internationally and domestically. But I also can very fairly say and predict that whatever carrier you use, as we get to the holidays, we will see record volume parcels in the commercial stream as well as in the postal stream. So I think you'll see the continued growth in e-commerce. I think you will continue to see the flexibility and the dynamic capabilities of e-commerce businesses adapting, as you have shared. And thirdly, you will see longer transit times. So that's where, as individually, as a sales professional, sales consultant, whatever you call it, it's being transparent with your client, saying yes, shipments to the United Kingdom from the U.S. usually take 5 to 8 days. We are seeing shipments take 7 to 14 days. Shipments to Australia that were moving 6 to 10 days now are moving 8 to 20 days. So definitely, I think there will be continued growth throughout the year, but definitely I think we'll continue to see some of those hurdles that e-commerce companies have seen over the last 15, 16 months continue in the back half of the year.
What's interesting is I've been having conversations with my partners here in Canada recently, and ultimately what they're saying is, if they expect so much demand that if you haven't chose a partner and you haven't forecasted with that courier partner, any new people getting into ship to home and e-commerce this year likely won't be able to, unless they're going to be delivering the packages themselves, because they're at capacity. They can't take on net new volume. So to me, that's, we're sitting here in June, and that's pretty alarming for anyone that is a startup or trying to switch their business from a traditional bricks and mortar and move to an online, that if they haven't established those relationships and got the commitment from the couriers now, that they're going to have a rude awakening come the back half of this year. So I think it's a a great tip that we need to really make sure that people are aware of. Get with your partners now, help them, forecast with them, and make sure that they have the transparency to the volume you think you're going to do.
Yeah, Chris, I agree with you 100%. You couldn't have said it any better. And that goes from whether it's existing clients that you have a long-term relationship with, the sooner that you can get your projections, they are able to forecast capacity. And you are exactly right where you say that providers, whether they're postal or whether they're commercial, there are capacity issues. Does that mean if you take, your package to grandma over to your Canada Post station and it's going to Newfoundland, will they not take it? No, of course they will take it, and it'll move. But as you said, for those e-commerce companies that are using whatever partner or provider they have, they definitely will run into some challenges. So that's definitely excellent advice. And it goes back to, what was said earlier. It's really that communication and that awareness between the e-commerce shipper and their partner to, learn, about some of the changes in the marketplace and really how, because we all want to have as much success as possible in Q4 with the holidays. So yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I think it's also going to start earlier as it has been, and I think it's also going to continue. So definitely agree.
Yeah, I think it will definitely start earlier. I know years ago we started leveraging Black Friday, trying to get a week out ahead of the competition, and now it feels like it's a full month ahead of time that the deals already start happening. So I can imagine things happening as early as October now, as we just try to. One, it helps with the flow of goods because it's a longer period of time instead of having all that volume over one weekend. But ultimately, the second is everyone's fighting for that share of wallet, and the sooner they can get those dollars, then they can't spend them elsewhere. So I think that's going to be a trend to continue to watch. Let's switch gears a little bit here, and let's talk about international. I haven't done international shipping for a long time. When I set up global e-commerce for Newegg, I spent a long time in that sector, but ultimately things have changed. Let's get your expertise on international shipping for the folks that are wanting to explore that.
Yeah, no, the timing of the question is perfect. There have been a number of changes to what's called the VAT scheme, which is the value added tax scheme. Really, very brief history. 2018, Australia came up with a 10% tax, 10% VAT tax. First started as they called it the Amazon tax because goods were coming into the country of Australia, but the Australian government was not getting that revenue. So people, in essence, would be able to go online, purchase a product, and not have to pay any taxes on it. So it was great for the consumer, but obviously, as any, whether it's the Revenue Canada or in the U.S., the IRS, companies when there are sales, obviously want to be compensated and make sure that the applicable duties and taxes are paid. So in 2018, Australia started that. 2019, New Zealand hopped on. There are some other countries, but basically what's happened in January of 2021, the United Kingdom, which was on the tail of Brexit, which they voted for at the end of 2019, the UK basically was removed from the European Union. So what that meant is any shipments that were inbound to the UK effective January 1st would be taxed. So they would be taxed at $1. Previous to that, we had the de minimis value that we talked about. That used to be, it was 18 GDP, Great British Pounds, about 22 US dollars. If shipments were below that, there were no duties or there were no taxes that needed to be paid. Effective January 1st, those shipments, regardless of the value, would be charged a VAT, the value added tax. And in the UK, it's pretty steep. It's 20%. But the importance of that is there's a lot of burden or responsibility on the e-commerce shopper because the e-commerce, not shopper, but the e-commerce business. The e-commerce business has to register with the UK tax authority. They have to get, in essence, a tax number similar to a GST in Canada or a federal tax ID in the US. Has to have that tax number for the UK. Then they have to remit taxes to the UK on a quarterly, every 6 month or annual basis. So there are lots of companies that do provide this service, and maybe as a follow-up, we definitely can provide some helpful links to the listeners. But the reason that is so critical is effective July 1st, the European Union and all 27 countries in the European Union are following that same VAT scheme, meaning that shipments anywhere in the European Union, in those countries that are in there, it's the big ones, minus Switzerland, but France, Germany, Ireland, those Spain, Portugal, those main e-commerce destinations now, e-commerce businesses are registering for what's being called an IOSS, an Internet One-Stop Shop. So basically, what they are creating is basically one tax ID number that covers the entire European Union. So those customers, they do not have to put that, what's called an IOSS number. You don't have to put that number on your packages. You don't have to put it on the label. But what you have to do is electronically in your manifest, you have to provide that number to the European Union. And then in that country, the tax authority knows when those taxes are paid, who paid those taxes, meaning the e-commerce shopper. So it's a very complicated topic, and I'm really trying to simplify it as much as possible. But what I would say is, if customers or if e-commerce shoppers have questions about the UK VAT scheme or the European Union VAT scheme, definitely we are able to assist to help people with that. But definitely, if you do ship international, please make sure to talk to your carriers, to your brokers, to your providers, and ask them, hey, what's going on with this UK VAT that I keep hearing about, or really more? The UK VAT started in January. If I'm shipping to the UK, there's some things that I need to do. July 1st, if I'm shipping to the rest of the European Union, France, Germany, Spain, Portugal, all those countries, there's some steps that I need to take. After the show, Chris, I'll provide you some links that you can definitely share with your listeners and with your followers. But yeah, it's definitely something that businesses are really going to have to pay attention to. And it's really the same in the EU as it was in the UK. Shipments from $1 will now be assessed a 20% tax, that the different unions, the different countries in the European Union will be looking to the e-commerce shipper to pay for those taxes. So since you're selling that good in whatever European Union, there's a 20% tax on that particular item. They definitely want to make sure that that tax is paid. They want to make sure that that tax is remitted, and they definitely want to be able to document that. Now, the question is, this is a really big change, and even in the even in the UK, we're still seeing a lot of packages that are not being assessed just because of the sheer volume of e-commerce. And it's still a very manual process. So there is really that possibility now that how long is it going to take until all of my packages are assessed duties and taxes? And the answer to that question is we really don't know, because we've really had nothing like this before.
That's a lot of good information to absorb there, Brighton. What we're going to do right now is just, first of all, ask you, how can my audience, because I'm sure they're listening and going, you forget the links, how do I contact this guy?
Yeah, no, that's no problem. Appreciate that. You see my name. I'm on LinkedIn, just Brighton Bacchus on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way to contact me. Try to be very active on LinkedIn, sharing some of these updates on some of the European Union and the UK VAT changes. So if you look at actually some of my posts on LinkedIn, you'll actually get a lot of the information that you're looking for. And then again, based on your particular scenario, if there is anything that we can do to assist you, definitely would love to help anyone out in any way that we can.
That's great. And yeah, I will put your LinkedIn information and your contact info in the comment sections as well, to make it easy for everyone to find out how to connect with you. What I found interesting with the countries that you were talking about, the one thing when I was launching global e-commerce for Newegg that I realized was a lot of these countries, while English was not their native language, they had a substantial audience that did understand and could shop with just the English language. And they were able to come to our sites while we were working on translating and making sure we got our content in their native language. It didn't stop them from shopping. They were able to engage with us just from the English content that we already had.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point that you bring up, and Chris, I appreciate you sharing that with me, because one of the things that we do, whether it's a company the size of Newegg, $1 billion company at this point, or a company that may be smaller, is what we will do is we will actually look at their internet geography, actually see where customers are looking for them. As you said, it may be an English website, but we actually will demonstrate, did you realize that, and it happens that, 75% of your website traffic is coming from Canadian IP addresses, but 10% of it is coming from Australia. 5% of it is coming from the United Kingdom. Again, I'm just making examples, but yeah, it really opening up an e-commerce business's eyes to these are other English-speaking countries with very similar setups. What if you were able to service those other English-speaking markets basically with what you're doing now? I mean, if you could increase your business 10, 15%, 20%, it's definitely something worth taking a look at. And again, it's not all easy. I mean, it's not just a snap of the fingers, but working with providers and working with consultants, you actually have a great opportunity to, and as you said, English is, if not the most popular language online, companies and e-commerce shoppers are definitely very savvy to that. So yeah, the language thing you brought up is very important, and that's definitely something to focus on.
And what I also found with that audience too was the assortment of goods. Maybe they didn't have access to that assortment in their countries. So they were actually, while it was expensive to do business, you were able to actually increase your margins because they didn't have the availability to those goods in their markets. So you could, not that you wanted to gouge them, but you need to make sure that your P&L is correct. So you were able to adjust your pricing to make sure it was relevant to that demand.
Yeah, no, very, very beautifully said. It is, and yeah, as you said, especially in the the electronics, accessories, in arena, or apparel, or cosmetics and beauty products, books. They're not very often anymore CDs, but yeah, those are really what we see. Those are really the industries, as you talked about, the electronic accessories, the apparel, beauty and cosmetics. You're exactly right. There are many countries that customers are not able, like you said, just to walk down the street to a store or boutique, what have you, for whatever reason, global pandemic. So that's where exactly, as an e-commerce business, you can really look at the trends, and as you said, not that you want to gouge these companies, but you can really, as you said, make a compelling statement that matches the supply to the demand. So yeah, very well said.
Great. And before we're 35 minutes into this. Typically my audience is now starting to get home, and we typically try to wrap this up in about 40 minutes so that they can just enjoy their time with their family. Is there any other key messages or takeaways that you can think of that would inspire someone right away to reach out to you? I know you give so much thoughtful advice to your partners, and really, whether they become a partner tomorrow, 6 months from now, or a year from now, you're always making sure that you're giving that advice for a long-term success and partnership, and it's not about just focusing on connecting for tomorrow. So is there anything that you want to mention that we've neglected to?
Yeah, Chris, I definitely really appreciate that. I think what I would say is really two things. First of all, I would say, and it sounds kind of silly, but really don't be afraid. If you do not ship internationally, it's not really that hard. Companies can take that step, whether it's one across the border or one across an ocean. You can actually service another country with economical, trackable shipping solutions, and you can grow your marketplace. So that's really the first piece of advice that I would have. Number one is to take that step, and don't be afraid to take that step. And number two, I would say your transparency and communication with your customers. For example, daily, we're providing a list of countries that are closed or countries that are experiencing delays. Our goal is that the customers that ship with us pass that information on along to their clients. So especially in this time during the global pandemic, with some of the challenges with resources that we've talked about, be forthcoming and transparent with your e-commerce shoppers so that they realize, hey, I'm used to getting it in 3 to 5 days. It might take 8 to 12 days. And the reality is we're all experiencing some of those challenges during COVID-19. So I would just encourage any e-commerce companies, and as you said, whether it's today, whether it's tomorrow, whether it's 6 months or 6 years, definitely it's always good to get the information, and you can determine how and when you want to take that step. So those are really the two things, Chris, that I would leave your listeners with.
That's wonderful. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time this evening. And I look forward to, we're going to get back and go deeper on some topics. There's some heavy ones, and I would like to spend some more time specifically going through a topic at a time with you. So I think we'll do that. But I think this was a really good way to do an introduction, and I really appreciate your time tonight.
The feeling is mutual as well. It was an honor to be on your show. Really excited about the growth and development of your show, and always here to help out in any way that we can.
Thanks, my friend. All the best, and say hello to your family.
You got it, sir. Take care.
All right. Bye.
You've been listening to Delivering E-commerce. It's our passion to have on leaders and suppliers in e-commerce from around the globe, setting you and your strategy up for the next level. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. Connect with Chris on LinkedIn at Chris Parsons, on LinkedIn and Spotify at Delivering E-commerce, or on YouTube at Chris Parsons Delivering E-commerce. Till next time, this is Delivering E-commerce.